Today we're talking about how to build personal relationships in a 24/7 connected world. Laura Harris gives us great tips on how to build and sustain high-touch connections with colleagues and customers on episode 2 of Women Connected.
This is the Women Connected podcast, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. If you're ready to cut through the noise and learn exactly the tools you need to create your professional brand, be recognized, and keep up in today's fast-paced world, then stay tuned.
Welcome to the Women Connected podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Goodgame, Program Director at TBW, where we believe that women can improve their personal and professional lives through technology. Today I'm excited to welcome Laura Harris to the show. Laura is a nationally renowned speaker, entrepreneur, and author of Surrender to Win, Regain Sanity by Strategically Relinquishing Control. She has helped hundreds of small business owners improve individual and business performance. Laura is a firm believer in micromanaging processes, so there's no need to micromanage people. Today, she can leave her office for 30 days at a time and feel confident that the business is thriving. Laura runs one of the largest all-state insurance offices in the country, and when she's not managing a successful business, she's on the board of directors of the South Texas Lighthouse for the Blind, Coastal Bend Emmaus, and Women's Shelter of South Texas. She's also a 4th-degree black belt and USTU certified master instructor in Taekwondo. Most importantly, she's the mom of 2 daughters and has 3 grandbabies. Laura, welcome to the Women Connected podcast. So glad to have you.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. Looking forward to it.
So you have such an interesting background. And I think one of the things that our listeners would really love to hear more about is how you are managing processes to make life a little bit easier in the workplace.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride because when I first became a business owner 19 years ago, the business was very successful right off the bat, and I felt like everything was going super wonderful until I went on my first vacation after having been in business for a year. And what I realized when I was sitting on the beaches of San Juan was that all day long I was thinking about things that could be falling apart. And not because I didn't have wonderful employees, but because unfortunately I had not well-defined systems. So when I went back after my first vacation and having a nervous wreck of a time sitting on a beach pretending to relax, I went back with a tremendous intent on sitting down and creating a very clear vision of where the business was at, where it was going, empowering the people at a much stronger level, and taking systems into the agency by taking every single process in the agency, defining it in writing, and assigning it very clearly to one person only so that there was no question regarding accountability. So it was not something I started from day one. I wish I had, but boy, it was something that I learned real quick was absolutely necessary.
So apart from that troubled vacation that you spent thinking about the things that were going on back in the office, were there other stumbling blocks that you encountered while you were trying to come up with these automated processes or organized processes?
Yeah, actually, probably my biggest stumbling block was, as a business owner, I'm a control freak. And of course, I think I have to have my finger in everything. So one of the things that I had to learn real quick was, even if it's only done 80% as well as I would have done it myself, I can't do everything in the office. So I had to become comfortable with, sitting down with the people that I worked with, coming up with the best way to do the program, and knowing that 90% of the time they're going to do it exactly the way that I would do it. But even if they don't do it 100% the way that I would do it, it's okay. But just being willing to relinquish control a little bit and know that the business will run 10 times better if I'm not trying to do everything myself. So I had extremely knowledgeable, extremely capable people, but just a little bit insecure when I first started in business about whether or not it made sense to let go of things. So had to learn to let go of things, and then the processes and systems start working a lot better for them and for me.
I think that's something that women often have a hard time doing. We're so used to being in control of our lives, our families, our children, trying to keep all of the calendars together, and finding a way to give up some of that control can really be a challenge, it sounds like.
Definitely. And I was, 20 years ago, 19 years ago, when I became an Allstate agent, one of the things that was really forefront in my mind was the fact that I was in an industry that was very male-dominated at the time. It really isn't now, but it was very male-dominated at the time. And so I felt like I had to prove that a girl could do as good as a guy. So I felt like I kind of gave myself extra pressure because of the fact that I was one of the few women in the industry that owned, an Allstate agency. So I was kind of a little hard on myself, and it became extremely important to me to not just be middle of the pack, but I absolutely wanted to be one of the top agencies, in the state of Texas. And the second year we were in business, we were named #1 agency in the state of Texas. So it wasn't just creating enough success to pay the bills. I was very determined to prove that a girl could do it as good as a guy.
Yeah, one of the things that we have talked a little bit about with TBW is the idea of the gender gap in technology. And it sounds like what you're talking about isn't just the gender gap in technology, but the gender gap in the industry that you were working in. Do you think that technology enabled you to help close that gap to become more effective in your role?
It didn't as much the first couple of years as, oh my gosh, it's radically changed my world in the last 5 years. The first couple of years, the technology wasn't anywhere near as complex as it is today. So technology definitely helped, there's no question. But boy, the amount of change that has happened in my operation in the last 5 to 6 years is 10 times more than it was in the first, 5 or 6 years. So it was certainly a factor in those first few years. Actually, I'd say the biggest factor in the first 10 years of having the agency was just honing in on how to find the right people. That was definitely the most important thing that I learned to do in the first 5 or 6 years. But boy, the last 5 or 6 years, it's really been about technology has radically changed how we do business.
So with those changes in your industry, have you had to adapt to or adopt new programs, new software? What does the technology look like for you today?
Radically different. I can tell you when I started in the insurance business back in 1979, the office that I worked in did not even have a computer.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine if somebody called in and says, I'm thinking about buying one of these 3 cars, we would have to pull down a 3-inch binder, and it would take an hour to manually rate every single option for each one of the cars. And it was complete and utter chaos. Now, with the software that's provided through the computer system, I can do the same thing in less than 5 minutes and rate all 3 cars. So definitely technology and, the software that's available through it have radically changed our ability to be more efficient with a customer. The danger with that is you have to be careful not to get going so fast because technology makes things quick and easy that you lose the relationship, in your communications and in the interactions that you're having. Because it's easy as things get faster and faster and faster to get in the habit of trying to hurry and get a customer off the phone. So that's about as dangerous as it gets. If we slow down on building relationships, we're in trouble.
So for you, it really seems like everything comes back to people. It comes back to the people that you have built your team with, and it comes back to the customer. How are you working to integrate, your effective people skills with technology in the business?
Yes. One of the things that's a definite challenge always is the technology is constantly changing. I mean, the systems that we were using to manage prospects 2 years ago are completely gone. We're using completely different software today than we were using a couple of years ago. And the same thing with our document storage is now cloud-based versus there used to be filing cabinets back in the good old days. There's not a filing cabinet in my office anymore. So the fact that we're constantly having not only myself, but everyone in the office to be doing training and changes in software, boy, if you're not careful to make sure that everyone understands not just the fact that we have to take on a new technology, but helping them understand why it's in their best interest and the customer's best interest, you can run into people who are really fighting you with the changes that must be made on the technology side. So it's really important to create that clear vision of why the technology has to take place, and then be very intentional about sitting down and putting together a training program as technology is changing, so that you make sure that everyone is on board and feels comfortable that they have the training that they need. So stopping what you're doing to handle technology can sometimes feel like a step backwards, but it's absolutely a must.
Training is such a critical part of it, and it seems like today businesses often give short shrift to that and expect employees to learn new tools on the fly or to come in with the skills. What recommendations do you have for women for keeping up with the relevant technology in their industry so that they can continue to be effective employees or business owners?
You know, it's kind of funny because one of the things that's good about technology is also been solved by technology. If you think about the fact that we have social media that didn't even exist in its current format 5 or 6 years ago, there is a tremendous ability to use sources in social media. So if we've got new software training, we may go out to YouTube and look at some of the training that people have already put together and put out on YouTube and utilize that in training the people inside the office. Or the company that provides the software typically will have good training videos. But in addition to that, there's so many online communities, whether it's for that particular software or for your particular industry, or the LinkedIn groups that you can have set up where you can go out to those groups and find out who the experts are. And it's amazing how almost always business owners in particular especially are very willing to share knowledge. So it makes it really nice to be able to take advantage of each other's learnings. And I am online with several different groups during the day on Facebook. And if I don't know how to do something, I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time searching it through the internet. I can go onto one of those online communities, put a question out there, and typically have an answer within 3 minutes. So it's amazing how the training itself can be provided through online, but the communities created inside of online opportunities, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, can also connect you to experts that you would have never had access to under normal circumstances. So technology's kind of solved the problem, even though it created the problem that we need lots of extra training.
It's always so interesting to talk to people about how they use social media in their personal and in their professional lives. And the idea of there being these user communities or experts who are more easily accessible through social media than they might be through other channels is something I think sometimes we forget about, that we can easily access people through our networks that way.
You can not only access them, but you can create genuine relationships with people that you would have never thought you would have access to. So I personally do a lot of blogging also in addition to owning the insurance business. And one of the things that I've noticed is I seeked out, 3 people in particular that I thought were the experts when it came to blogging and building online communities and tribes: Mary DeMuth, Jeff Goins, and Michael Hyatt. And in following their blogs, what it's done is provided with me a tremendous amount of additional information. But in addition to that, I can send an email to Jeff Goins and get an answer from Jeff Goins directly, answering a question. So it's you legitimately, as long as you're a generous person who's always given back and not just taking, or being creepy weird, it's amazing how you become part of a community that is helping them, because obviously when they have books come out or other things, they're needing to utilize their community. But you need to understand who the experts are in your field. You need to find out the people who are dominant thinkers in the business world, and you need to be following them on blogs, because it's amazing how willing they are to have relationships with people who are generous in return.
It's such a great suggestion, and I think that it's the kind of relationship building that many people for a long time were concerned that the increased use of social media networks and other sorts of online interactions might degrade. But it sounds like the way that you're using social media is really to create even more high-touch contacts with the folks that you're trying to build relationships with.
Absolutely. And not only that, but, depending on which one of the mediums it is, it also gives me the ability to communicate with someone that I do have a relationship with. And then, for example, on Facebook, their friends see that I have a relationship with them. And when my face keeps popping up over and over and over again in different people's news feeds, it's amazing how they start feeling like they know you, even though they've had no connection with you other than seeing other people's communication with you. And a lot of the people that I follow as business thinkers at this stage of the game are people that I've discovered and didn't even know of 6 months ago through different types of social media. So yeah, it's a tremendous asset.
I know 10 years ago, could you imagine tweeting Peter Drucker or somebody like that?
No, and it still freaks me out when they actually answer you directly. I mean, it's still a little bit weird, but boy, it requires that you keep everything in perspective and be very, very careful with those communications because you have to respect the fact that they're probably getting thousands of interactions. And you also have to understand that they're not always going to answer every single one. That's okay too. But as a whole, their community will know the answer if you've got a question. So getting connected to the communities, because they don't just send out newsletters. They create communities within their blogs and their websites. And that allows you to have connections with other people that have expertise. And boy, it's fantastic.
So shifting the topic just a little bit, do you consider yourself an early adopter of new technologies, or are you more apt to take a wait and see approach to something?
I am typically a wait and see person. I can tell you it is so funny because 4 or 5 years after I became an Allstate agent, Home Office had me on a project because they were wanting to find out why my business was growing so radically. And they had me and some other people on a project. And they told me that they were going to ask me to help with their technology department. Well, at the time, this was 15 years ago, I didn't even own a personal computer. So when they asked me to be on the technology team, I'm about dying of a heart attack and laughing behind the scenes. I had to go buy a PC because I had my computer that the business owned and it had some company software, but I didn't ever use technology. And I've gotten a little more proactive about it. But for example, I just recently added dual screens on my computers. And I know agents that have raved about it for over a year, but until I had 6 or 8 people tell me, are you stupid? I can't believe you're not utilizing dual screens. Then I finally got on board and did it, and my employees are thrilled to death because it has radically improved our operation. So I would say I'm not the earliest of early adopters, but I certainly pay attention to technology because I have definitely seen it radically change my business.
So in terms of adopting new technology, do you have any advice for women who are nervous about adopting something new?
The most important thing, if I'm considering something in particular, for example, the most important thing that we've done from a technology standpoint in the last few years has been switch over to voice over internet protocol phones. Well, if you're doing something that radical, having the voice over internet protocol phones for us has allowed me to actually live in Canada. I don't live in Texas where my business is. I have an employee in Colorado Springs, and we are able to seamlessly run this business with remote employees and measure everything to the T because the VoIP phone system tells me exactly how many incoming and outgoing phone calls each person has, and it emails me those results every single morning. Well, I would never ditch standard hardline phone systems and move to something that's that far outside of my comfort zone, at least, without talking to not just all the salespeople who are trying to, convince you to use their products, but business owners that I know and trust to find out how has that transaction going as far as transitioning from where they had hardline phones to the VoIP phone system. What suggestions do they have? And I didn't talk to 1 or 2. I talked to 10 or 15 different people about, what is it that I need to know? I'm completely, challenged when it comes to understanding this particular technology. And then I did talk to all the different salespeople and asked them, well, why should I use your product versus the other, so that I was able to take lots and lots of information. If it's minor technology things like adding dual screens, you don't need that much research. But boy, if it's something major like the voice over internet protocol on the phone systems, it cut my phone bill in less than half. And it made it possible for us to do business seamlessly and to have measurements that we would have never had if we hadn't switched phone systems. But that type of change required a lot more research. So talking to other business owners that you trust and respect is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, it's amazing how just what seems like, well, that change is actually a really tremendous change. But it seems as though the idea that changing something so fundamental to your business can save you so much money and increase your productivity so tremendously, it almost seems like one of those things where once you figure it out, it's just a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah. I only wish I had changed. I actually changed to the voice over internet phones about 5 or 6 years ago. I wish I had changed 5 years before. Really, if I'd had any idea how radically it would have improved our effectiveness, I would have done it a long time ago. But I was so terrified of having quality issues, and I was overwhelmed. I mean, I was really overwhelmed with, how hard was this going to be, and what if we ran into problems? So, but I'm so thrilled that we finally did it.
So I'm curious. I think often when we think about the insurance business, we think of it as a really big behemoth. But it sounds like you have created a business that is really nimble and very responsive, both to your needs and to the needs of your customer. Would you say that you are a unique business owner in terms of how you operate your insurance agency?
Absolutely, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, the company that I work for, Allstate Insurance, has actually recorded me teaching agents how to do what I do from a system and process standpoint. And every single new Allstate agent that's hired gets to watch that tape in Chicago before they open their office. So I am definitely a prototype for making sure that you create the clear vision, empower the people that work with you, and design systems, because our world is no longer the way it was in the old days, where there's one little agent and a secretary that answers the phone. I've got 7 employees. 5 of them have been with me over 10 years. Every one of them is as knowledgeable as me and has the same exact licenses as me. Ideally, a business owner's job is to clone themselves and get out of the way. And those in the insurance industry that do that well have tremendous residual income. I can do it all myself and drink coffee with everyone, but I'm not going to be able to grow a business in that model. So it's been extremely helpful to be very process-oriented.
Well, it sounds like you've really done an amazing job with the way that you have shaped your business. When we're thinking about technology and the stuff that we have in our smartphones or on our iPads, is there any app or other tool that you use on a daily basis to manage some personal aspect of your life that's just invaluable?
There is a bunch for me. Probably my favorite at this point in time, because I do think business owners need to be actively engaged in Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, is Hootsuite. And what Hootsuite does is it allows you to look at all 3 of those applications in one piece of software through their application. So it's nice, instead of having to go out to all 3 of those constantly to look at things and update them, I can do it through Hootsuite, and they're all together in one system. In addition to that, I can post something in Hootsuite and tell it that I want it to be sent out to one of those, all 3 of those, right this minute. Or I can schedule an entire week's worth of posts all on a Sunday and not have to get out there constantly to be posting in order for it to be perceived that I am very active on social media. So Hootsuite is absolutely fantastic. For those of you who have customers, I use MailChimp, which gives me the ability to set up newsletters with those that I do consulting with on the business side, and then also through customers. I have the ability through MailChimp to set up newsletters that go out to customers on a weekly or monthly basis. So that makes my life a whole lot simpler. But there is so many different ones out there, but my 2 favorite are definitely MailChimp and Hootsuite.
Those are really great resources and great productivity tools. We use them also. And I think Hootsuite will probably be one of the programs that we provide a tech tip on coming up in the future, because it really is just such a time saver and helps you have such a good landscape view of what's going on in terms of your social media, as you say. So it's been really wonderful to speak with you today. And I think you have given our audience quite a number of things to think about. Is there anything else you'd like to share with them about how to better navigate our fast-paced world?
I think probably the most important thing is constantly stop and think what's not working in your business. And odds are there is some way that technology can help you with that. Even if it's just looking at measurements. I mean, most businesses have some way to look at measurements through technology nowadays, but if you're constantly, and it will change from month to month or year to year, but constantly looking at not only your business life, but every aspect of your life, what's working and what's not working. And I actually keep a list. In Evernote, more technology, keep a list of what's not working in the different aspects of my life and stop and think, is there a way for technology to help that? And stay connected to communities that will put you on a fast pace to learn more as you go.
I think you've given our listeners such great advice today, Laura. Thanks again for joining me, and it's really been a pleasure having you with us on Women Connected.
Thank you.
The Women Connected podcast was brought to you by TBW and the TBPW Foundation, underwriter of many of our training and leadership development programs. For more information about TBW membership and our upcoming events, please visit our website at tbwconnect.com. This podcast was produced with the assistance of Authority Engine. We hope you'll join us next time on Women Connected.